So here we have the 9 types represented on this symbol. And if you are new to the Enneagram, this symbol represents 9 different styles of living, 9 different personalities. There isn't one that's better than the other. They're all messed up in some ways, and they're also wonderfully gifted in other ways. They're on this circle with lines that represent different connections, and we're going to be going into these in some details later. But for now, just know that these are 9 different styles of being in the world, and they are really representing 9 different aspects of how we are human. And I've often said that it's a beautiful representative of diversity training to come to understand these 9 different lenses through which people see the world, because each of them does represent a very different perspective on how we view life. So we're going to start with the type 8, which is a body type. And the type 8, as an ego pattern, has this ideal that it is in control, it is strong, it wants to be the leader often. It's often called the boss. And the type 8 moves through the world with a kind of self-confidence that is represented by this strong animal. So these are very confident people that easily lead. But they can get into trouble, their ego can get into trouble because it can be really insistent on being in control. So its journey is really to move out of that control into a more mutual way of being in the world. And then we have, in many ways, a very different kind of type. That is the type 9, represented by this animal, the sloth. And the type 9 is a peacemaker. It's a mediator of sorts. And its ideal self is I'm at peaceful and I'm at harmony with other people. So it loves to merge. It loves to be accommodating. It's an easy person to be around, but it can give itself away, kind of opposite of the 8 in many ways. It can be a self that too easily follows the lead of others. And it can end up with a kind of emptiness, or it can lead to a kind of sleepwalking. And so its journey is really to come into its own energy and preferences and to engage the world with more decisiveness. The type 1, which is the last of the body types, the 8, 9, and 1 are all body types, is represented by this eagle. And it has an ideal of being right or correct. It's very focused on what's in order, what's out of order. It wants to be responsible, it wants to be good. And so the eagle eye is really an image that captures this type. This type is often called the perfectionist or the reformer, and it's about righting things that are wrong. And there's a really important place for that in the world, of course. And yet this type can lapse over into a kind of critical self. It can be very critical toward itself. It can also be quite critical toward others. So this self needs to work on, in many ways, seeing the gray in between the right and the wrong, and moving into a kind of a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? A sense of serenity, that things don't have to always be perfect, and that in some ways they're perfect in their imperfection. So we now move to type 2, which is a shift from the body types into the heart type. And here we have these wonderful puppies that represent the helper, the giver. So the type 2 has an ideal self of being helpful, of being giving, of doing for others. And type 2s just bring a lot of warmth into the world. They love to join other people and support other people. And underneath that, they're being driven by this desire to be appreciated and to be needed. And so this helper type can really spend so much of its energy giving itself away that it can really end up burnt out. And it can feel resentful that it's not being fully appreciated. So the journey of this type is into a kind of giving that doesn't expect anything back. And when it falls into that kind of a pattern, it really expresses the best of itself in very easy ways. The type 3 is also a heart type, and it's represented here by the chameleon. So the type 3 is an achiever. The type 3 loves to succeed, and it believes that if it succeeds, it will get back some of the appreciation that the heart desires. So it's a very ambitious type. They love to take on projects and see them through to the end. They are movers and shakers. They have a lot of positive energy. And that chameleon dynamic shows up when they can really be whoever they need to be to succeed. But there's a downside to that they can be so busy being what other people need that their authentic self doesn't get shown as it should. So the journey of this type is into its authenticity and becoming more real in the world. Then it can use its great gifts of doing and achieving in ways that serve not only others, but serve the self. Now the fourth of the heart types is the type represented by this beautiful peacock. It's a type that's very artistic and original. It loves to be unique in the world. It loves to show itself in a way that is special. It really values specialness. So it is seeking the appreciation and in some ways seeking the love of other people by being unique and different. So creativity is a real hallmark of this type. And it can be many different kinds of ways that it's creative. But this is a type that is really, of all the 9 types on the Enneagram, has the deepest kind of current of feeling that it's in touch with. And the good news is that that's very helpful in artistic expression. The hard part of being a type 4 is they can find themselves on a roller coaster of feelings, high highs and low lows. And it's often called at times the melancholic type. So it's creative, but it can give way to this very strong feelings. So the work of this type is to really move into a kind of equanimity where it gets off the roller coaster of feelings and yet is able to be a person of deep heart presence in the world. As we move out of the heart types, we move to the head types. And here we go to the type 5, which is represented by the owl. It's the wise type on the Enneagram. It has the ideal of I am knowable, I am perceptive, I'm unencumbered. And it likes to be unencumbered because from that space it can think. It can really become competent in whatever it wants to explore. So this type tends to be more bookish in some ways. They love academics, they love libraries, they love to close the door and really become experts. The problem is they can become so removed from the flow of life that they can feel a kind of emptiness, and they can get overly caught in the mind. And underneath all of this mental movement can be a deep desire for security that is true for all of the head types. So the work for this type is really to move out of the head and move into the heart and the body and to connect more with other people. The type 6 as a head type is a type that has an ideal of being loyal, of being responsible and secure. And this is a type that in many ways uses loyalty and connection with others in order to feel safe. So as a head type, this is the type that can feel the most anxious of all of the Enneagram types. It can feel like, when is the shoe going to drop? It lives with a kind of wariness. And so it's always on the lookout for how can I move towards security? What can feel more safe? And the image of the wolves here represents that pack dynamic, safety through loyalty. But the catch for the 6 is they're often very suspicious. So while they want to move toward people, they do so with warmth, but their mind is also just being a little bit careful about what they might be encountering. So the work for the type 6 is to really move into a deeper kind of trust, to be aware of that anxious mind and move into the trust that comes through a deeper kind of heart knowing and through the body wisdom. Finally, we come to the type 7, which is, of all the types in the Enneagram, considered to be the most playful, the most joyful. And the ideal of the type 7 is I'm happy, I'm free, I'm having a good time. This is a head type that loves to be in the world of imagination. It loves to play, it loves to think about what would be the next exciting thing. This is a type that loves mental stimulation, it loves activity, it loves doing. And yet underneath all of that mental activity, there is a certain current of anxiety or perhaps of pain, that all of that mental activity in some ways is working to push down and aside. So the work of the type 7, that's represented by this beautiful dolphin, is really to come into a deeper way of being with self that is in touch with some of the hard stuff of life. And so they can bring their wonderful, playful energy in a way that's not just pushing aside or repressing the hard realities of life.